Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to The Treaded Path, the podcast from Kufi Productions, where we explore the inspiring journeys of Muslim professionals across diverse industries. I'm your host, Salman Hasan, and each week we sit down with remarkable individuals who are making their mark in their chosen fields. We highlight their successes and challenges in their journey, also examine corporate accountability within their industry and their spaces, and also offer any actionable advice on career advancement and ethical navigation to those who want to tread that path. As a reminder to our listeners, you can view the show notes and resources and ways to connect with our guest speakers in the Treaded Path archive in kufiproductions.com. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Zoya Rukh Awan. Zoya is currently the Director of Public Affairs at Walmart. She has been recognized for her leadership and advocacy, as well as Corporate Advocate of the Year for her work in supporting communities and driving meaningful partnerships. She's often invited into spaces as bridge builder, bringing together leaders across businesses, nonprofits, government, and creative sectors to collaborate in thoughtful and human-centered ways. In addition to her corporate leadership, she has always been a wanderer and a storyteller and loves to travel, so which we'll learn more about today from her, inshallah. So Zoya, assalamu alaikum, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Alaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm super happy to be here today. And thank you so much, Salman, for the invitation. Really excited to explore this treaded path with you and be on it.
Absolutely. My pleasure. So before we dive into your story, Zoya, tell us, what is the coolest place you visited this far and why?
Okay, so I have a lot of cool places that I have been to, alhamdulillah. And it's also always very difficult for me to pick because I'm not someone who likes to play favorites. However, at this moment, I'm going to share that one of my coolest places is Konya, Turkey. So I don't know if you guys know about Konya, but that is where Maulana Rumi, the great poet slash also Sufi saint, is buried in his city, the city of lovers. And I had an opportunity to go there 2 years ago on a retreat with this teacher. His name is Baraka Blue. And it was really amazing to be in community, to explore more of the depths of Rumi and kind of feel the energy of this mystical city. Anybody who feels called to go, I highly recommend it. And it's very sacred.
I've been to Konya myself. The place is magical. Words cannot describe. When you step in there, it's just like there's just so much history of Maulana Rumi and his disciples and the work that they've done throughout history. So yeah, I definitely recommend anyone who has a chance to be able to visit Turkey. You have to stop by Konya. It's full of history, full of knowledge, spirituality, and the food is amazing. If you're a foodie,
Definitely.
it's spot on for sure. But it's not about me or Konya. It's about Zoya and her story. So let's start from the beginning. Tell us about your early influences that shaped who you are today, your career, the path that you've taken so far.
Sure. Thank you so much for asking. And I'll just say assalamu alaikum again to everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all.
Assalam.
Mera naam Zoya, and my name is Zoya. I always love bringing our language and our tradition into the space because it's something that I've been on a really amazing journey of understanding and reclaiming, as an adult and in our early years. I was born and raised in Long Island, New York. My family is from Pakistan originally, and it was my boji, my paternal grandfather, who we miss a lot, but he immigrated more than 50 years ago, left his country of Pakistan to come to America to pursue being a pharmacist. And mashallah, my whole family, were here standing on his shoulders now. And
MashaAllah.
it's been a really interesting journey, growing up in Long Island, New York. And then as it evolved and grew, when I was younger, I went to Islamic Center of Long Island, Sunday school community, which, still very much so exists today in Long Island, which is beautiful. And it's so fun to see how it's grown, and was involved in different types of. My mother, she would always push me in a good way to be involved in different interfaith activities, or there was something that like called unity in the community, spaces that were being brewed, that were bringing different youth together from different religions, etc. And so I have a memory of that. And then when I was in high school, there is a woman, her name is Daisy Khan, and she is now a Muslim woman leader. And I never used to be able to see, I felt like I didn't see other Muslim women leaders like myself, like that I could look up to. right? And that's one of the reasons that's kind of led my own path in the way it has. And she was one of the few women, and she actually like went to my high school, and she's still very much my mentor today. I interned for her back in the day when I was in high school at the American Society for Muslim Advancement. And that was like my early years. And now, like years later, she's written some book projects and we kind of continue to be connected. And so I've been lucky to definitely have a mom who saw vision in directing me in that in like an atypical path and like putting me in those spaces that sort of inspired understanding of faith for myself, but and also the acceptance of everyone in that. And then I just also kind of attribute it to some mentors along the way then when I went to college and everything, but we won't get into that yet. Because you said early years, and I guess maybe that considered early.
I mean, early years can include anything prior, you know, for the past, anything before the past year, right? I would say early years.
Oh, really?
It
Okay.
just, I mean, just broadly speaking, but I will ask you this right now, since we're on the topic of mentorship and influences, right? Were there moments were there moments during your career building, let's put it that way, and the early years of building up your career path, that you let your faith and like the people of faith, scholars or those who are, spiritually connected, kind of help you guide you in difficult situations or scenarios that that you encountered?
Uh, a bit. I would say that more recently in my experience over the last several years, and we talked about Rumi and understanding the like connection of sheikhs and chains. There's a few sheikhs that I would say that I trust and would go to and say, "Hey, this is what I'm experiencing." In the Naqshband, my family's part of the Naqshbandi lineage, and sometimes on my travels, I would one of my sheikhs who just passed away, which I'm really sad about. I would just be like, "Where should I go, Sheikh Abdul Haq?" And he'd be like, "Go to Cyprus and go visit this thing." So it would just be like a little talk. We're not talking all the time, or it wasn't like always a very like he had every awareness, and there still was a sense of like guidance and a sense of protection, I guess you could say, and being in the family. And that's one of the things that I think is really powerful about our community, are like connected to lineage and connected to story. And there's a lot that we can learn from that. And sometimes like guidance, I just feel comes in different ways. So I'm definitely still on that journey, and it's very interesting.
Definitely. With any journey, there's always bumps and challenges that you come across, right? No matter who you are. So being Muslim, being a Muslim woman in the professional spaces, what unique challenges have you faced that you've kind of had to take a moment and really think like, what's the best way forward? Were there any particularly challenging moments that you felt like, okay, this was a turning point in my life?
I think that being a Muslim woman and carving a path that's atypical, so everything that I've done up until this point, so just kind of taking you guys on my journey, like I went to college in Washington, D.C. I studied international affairs and communication studies. I didn't intend it in a very like intentional way. And I knew, oh, I wanted to make an impact, and I wanted to I thought that the only way to do that was government or nonprofit. So it's like that's why I went in that. Then my young
Got it.
professional, I didn't have like a job exactly in mind of exactly what I wanted to. And that was always tricky, right? Because it's not like a perfect fit. Sometimes people will say, like, oh, well, what do you want to do? Like I said, I didn't have role models to look at and be like, oh, that's who I want to be exactly. And I felt like in
Sure.
spaces of
Yeah.
like peace and conflict resolution and diplomacy and things like that, like at the time, I kind of followed this intuition, also not really knowing. And even still today, the role that I work, so I have a corporate job now, and it was interesting because I would have never seen myself necessarily as a corporate person. And I got to understand that corporate has a big role to play when it comes to impact, right? So I said initially, like, I wanted to make an impact. And it was through certain mentors kind of guiding me. And of course, Allah's always guiding it too, because when you look back, it's easier to connect the dots. And when you look forward, you're like, how did that happen? So I would say along the way, the challenges were that I it's always like not knowing where I fit, right? And it's like continuing that. It's still like understanding and continue to lean more into my power and embrace the identity, growing up and going to college in a place where my parents were strict and like didn't let us go to certain sleepovers or do different things or dress a certain way. And at the time when
Right.
I was younger, I used to like feel like bad about that or still want to rebel or, sometimes going behind their backs and doing it or not taking pictures of it, however it was. We've all had that experience, right? And it's been those are challenging because as a Muslim woman, I'm learning my bound. It's like as an adult now, I can say, okay, these are my boundaries, and they're always evolving or how it grows, and just like shaping that identity. And alhamdulillah, I think now as an adult, when I look back, like I said, that not knowing and not committing to a certain vision is exactly what has grown me in this abstract direction that I wouldn't have expected, right? And like I ended up getting my MBA before like this Walmart role because got really interested in the intersection of business and impact. And again, I didn't know exactly what the job was going to be. And when you have your MBA, the question they ask you, everybody's like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? I just would be like, I didn't want to answer that question. Like, of course, I had certain instincts, and I would say, oh, I want to do some corporate social responsibility, or I want to do this, I want to do that. And the role that I have right now doesn't even exist in other companies necessarily. So it just has been interesting to carve a path that's very unique and be true to it, even when I'm not known where it's going.
Yeah. No, for sure. And that's life, right? Like, you can never carve the path exactly 100% the way you want it because life will always, be throwing, when life throws you lemons, that phrase, right? Like, what do you do with those lemons kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and like the peaks and valleys are kind of important in the whole thing always.
As Muslims, we know like Allah is in control of all outcomes. So all you can do is the best you can do, put your best foot forward, and leave the rest to Allah to be able to guide you in the direction that you seek, right? So given that, and thank you for your taking us through your.
Yeah, this is my storytelling technique. You're gonna get beats and bits and pieces throughout the conversation.
But we'll put it together and it'll be a very nice
Exactly.
story
It's
to
a whole
tell for
web.
sure. Given your corporate experiences, your background and working in you know, different spaces within the corporate spaces. What would you say are the top challenges faced in the corporate world right now? If you were to pick one or two that's really, kind of problematic right now in the corporate world, what would you say those are?
So I sit in a very unique role, and it's understand when you're working with corporates, they're holding for a lot of stakeholders and realities, right? So anything that's playing out in the world is playing out within the corporation. And it's interesting to understand that really corporations are at sort of a intersection point of needing to decide like how we stay true to our values amidst the changing times, while we can be respectful to everyone, right? Because at our companies, like we do believe like everyone is welcome. We want to create spaces that everyone belongs and things. And that is something that it's like talk and action and also has so many multifaceted legs to it. And I think as we all know, our country right now and everything, there's just a lot of unique nuances playing out. So I think the leadership within corporate is wanting to continue to be about, make the best decisions while also being swayed by different realities that are playing out, you could say, And so I think it's interesting for myself because I'm on the inside and I do get to see how leaders are making some of those decisions. And my role as sometimes that communicator into communities, it is about like trust building. And we do really want to do what's best. And I trust that because I see that coming from the leaders and things. And sometimes just how that translates, it's not about right and wrong. It's just like trying to hold for those different realities. And I, as a leader, and especially to like corporations, I think historically, they're businesses. And now businesses are being asked to take a voice and a stand in more things than before. because consumers or people are saying like, oh, we want to know that you're part of our community, for example, or you've helped our community or you care about our community. Like that's what people are going to be part of the business. I mean, it's multifaceted. Some businesses we're going to always rely on just because they make things easier. So it's just like that trust building and keeping things big perspective, I think is going to be is going to continue to be interesting in corporate worlds.
That's interesting. And also, you're right that there are very well-intentioned leaders in the corporate world, uh, who have some sway in terms of how corporations behave and how they hold themselves accountable. What would you say that what would you say is the role that Muslim leaders in these spaces can do, and can play in pushing for its industry reform? So I'll give you an example. Everyone knows the tech world is very complex and complicated and full of nuances, trying to stay and read between the lines here. But as we know, there are a lot of Muslim leaders in the tech space, right? So how can these leaders, knowing full well that a lot of the actions taken by corporations don't necessarily align with our Islamic and Muslim values that we've been taught since day one? And so how do we balance that and bring that and make that come to life, so to speak, while trying to ensure that it's not impacting your standard of living or your way of living and being able to provide for your family at the same time? And I know it's a very loaded question there, but take your time.
I know, man. So, okay, I want to share an example of something that a fellow colleague of mine slash associate. So, in our company, we say associates, every employee, right? And there is these different spaces because, like, we get to control our own actions and how we take leadership, right? And a lot of times, I mean, Islam is a religion of peace, and Islam is about togetherness and just like we're not, there's no compulsion in anything, but just it's like you do you, I do me. We respect it. There's about that. And this associate, we just got a new home office, and she made it a point to like, there's these quiet rooms around every building that are supposed to be like a space that people can go away if they need to like meditate or just need a break away or sensory overload. And she put Muslim prayer mats in every single quiet room. And I was at our campus last week. And again, I'll be honest, it's not like I pray 5 times a day. May Allah give me the guidance, inshallah. And
Inshallah.
it encouraged me to be like, I was at my workplace and I knew that she had done that because she had kind of shared it with us. So it incentivized me to go and find the quiet room, which was interesting because one of my colleagues, I was like, where's the quiet room? And then like he helped me find it. Go in there. I found the prayer mat, and then I prayed Salah, which again, maybe isn't something I've always taken pause for during my week to do that. And that's like a seemingly small but and big leadership action, right? She just took the initiative to like, okay, a space was already there, make it welcome, right? Because nobody's gonna say, well, I can't. And it was just so interesting because the room is just empty. And really, for us to do our prayer, you really just need the mat, or you don't even need that. So that's one example that just recently came into my experience. And I guess what I would also encourage is like focus, like our presence is our power, our voice is our power, our intention is our power, our prayer is our power. So like when we walk into these spaces and we carry Allah with us with the niyyah of what's best and guidance for the corporation, for our roles, for our families, for our risk, how we make abundance, then that'll automatically feel, I feel, and again, these are my perspectives and take what resonates and not what doesn't, because I'm no expert here. And I just feel like in my own experience, it automatically kind of creates an energy that you then feel aligned with, and with when there's things, because you understand your space and purpose. Like I enjoy wearing my traditional clothes now. And that's been something that's taken me a while to embrace because I understand that, oh, this is how I'm bringing my culture and who I am into this space. And I'm making it safe for others to do that too. And embracing our ancestors, it feels fun to do it even in subtle ways, because we're saying, I just heard a fact. It's like 95% of our communication is nonverbal. So you don't have to go in marching and saying all this stuff and being like, I'm a Muslim and we have to have all Muslim values, because many values that we have, like respect and these things, exist across just all human culture. So I think it's like more about leaning into those and finding these moments and ways where we can build community amongst ourselves. You know, like you're doing this with this podcast, and we're continuing to all gather that can, inshallah, make these space continue to make these spaces safe for us and also welcome for everyone, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah. No, for sure. And I another reason why I bring this up is as we're taught in our deen, uh, Islam never rejects anyone based on who they are, their values, or the door of Islam is open to anyone, right? And as a Muslim ruler, you're obligated to let anyone practice whatever they feel comfortable with, value wise or religious wise, right? So uh, our Muslim leaders of the past, our role models, it's not uncommon to see that even the places that they ruled, they allowed Christians to practice their Christianity, Jews to practice Judaism, and within those subsects, they practice it. Everyone was free to practice how they wanted to, right?
And just to highlight, it's like we can't get too caught up in the words that are being used, right? Because that's meant to be distraction. What we have control over is showing up as our best, like our best selves, and carrying that with us. And
Exactly.
also, as someone who kind of plays, that's what I meant when I said those challenges. Because when you see what's happening on the inside, you understand that, okay, language is important. And we also need to loom bigger than that, right? To make sure that we can just move with whatever the changing tides are. You know, sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. And it's in my own understanding, I understand that, like I said, how we show up is going to be what matters the most. And like in little moments of dawah, you know, that's like we don't have to go and be like, oh, we're Muslim and we have to. It can be super subtle and it still will matter. And I also think because, you know, we've been on a journey as Muslims in this country and in general, and we are one of the world's largest religions, and it goes across everywhere, everyone, cultures, things. So it's like let's focus on more of connecting around those beauty pieces so people get it too and connect with it as opposed to trying to separate ourselves from it, you know?
For sure, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I was trying to get at. Is the some of the best ways of showing who you are as a person is just the daily things that you do, right? Like just how you have a conversation or how you hold a conversation with somebody, how tidy you keep your desk, uh, how you eat your lunch at the
Something
at
as
the
simple as
cafeteria.
smiling, you know, our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had smiling is a
Exactly.
charity. And like
How
like
often you
literally
smile.
wear your smile as big as you can all the time. And like no, like I've tried this, you know, when you go to elevators or when you see strangers or however, there's a lot of things be going on, but it just smiling literally creates a moment of connection. You don't have to say anything more, but it reduces guard. It's a language that everybody understands and feels, I
Right.
guess you could say.
They say body language is 70% of communication, and the rest is a mix of like everything else. But like body language is huge, right? So like smiling,
Yeah, okay, that
you
might be
know,
the proper stat, but I knew something like that. A lot of our communication happens non-verbally.
exactly, exactly. So with all of that in mind, right? Um, and understanding how the world is operating in this day and age, how do you, or where would you start the whole accountability advocacy, if you will, for yourself and for others around you, right? So if you so I'll give you an example, right? If you see someone doing something that's not appropriate, whether that's at work or outside of work, like, sorry, let me take that back. I have a question. I'll rephrase that question. Are there specific ways of holding people accountable when you see something that's not appropriate? I'll I'll start with that.
I guess it depends on your own personal and what you define as not right or accountability. Um, And I think that my only piece of tidbit would be like, whatever we do, always keep in mind like respect. And also sometimes it's just, it's not ours to judge, right? So like we don't have to be the ones that are like that. Well, and I don't know a specific example and it depends. And there's just, it's like be the change you wish to see in the world. So focus less on what are the things that others are doing that are not in alignment with what's, things, and stay connected to our Allah and our paths and try and connect with intention, positive, sparks, and follow those. I guess I don't have anything else to share exactly because I'm someone who's like, I want to choose to like look at everything, and not to say that some people, and I don't understand, and I'm just like, okay, conceal their sins, or it is what it is, or I don't get it. It's not my place. And I'm going to try my best to continue to do what I can and do better. We all are imperfect beings. Like that's part of humanness. And more importantly, now than ever, my opinion is for us to find more things that we're common ground on and that we can agree on and that we can be mutually in love on rather than calling out people's flaws and things like that. So I think I don't know like what kind of specific example you're citing, and I
No,
think encourage
no,
all of us.
no, yeah. No specific example, but the reason I asked that question is because I notice it's a lot of people are saying this, that it's better to call out the flaw, not the person, right? So innately, most people, I'm gonna say most people because there are exceptions. Right? Most people are born good, right? They have a good heart, they're good in nature and soul, and it's some of their actions that are not good, right? And so when it comes to, teaching accountability, being able to show what is right from wrong, right? It's best, and this is kind of also to reiterate what we've just been talking about. It's best to kind of show from ourselves the example of what good looks like, rather than just telling them what it like. It's like kind of like a parent-child relationship in a sense, right? The child, when you tell them, "Hey, don't do this. This is bad," they don't necessarily understand what is good. And so you have to lead by example, right? And you have to show them that, smile more using that example you were saying,
Children,
right?
and I don't have any children, and that's a good fact though. It's known that people follow what they observe. Exactly. It's like talk less, words less, actions more. So you get to be your actions. And then I agree with you on what you said about not focusing on the person, but it's kind of like let's focus on wiping out the disease rather than the person who's sick. And there's like a quote that I'm butchering a little bit, but that's the idea, right? So, what is the disease that is causing people to behave in some of these ways? And let's like focus on that and condemn that, not the people, because we have to like we emulate compassion because that's what we want. Like that's like one of our core things of Allah, most compassionate, most merciful. So as best as we can, I, at least for myself, I always try to put that lens on top of things when I can, and exactly, like at least human wise, like we know that we will make a dua, of course, for everybody, like Allah guide them or whatever it is, because we don't want our brothers and sisters or community to be feeling like that. And, in a world where there's so much happening, and let's focus on how we can eradicate the disease, whatever that is in a specific content.
Yeah, 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 for sure, for sure. Well, Hamna, this has been a great discussion thus far. I want to now take it a little bit into uh, a little bit more career focus, if you will. So now that, we have understanding of like the the ways of working as a Muslim, as a young professional trying to enter the workforce, for the first time, or if you're a seasoned professional switching careers, right? It still applies. What would you say is the biggest mistake you've seen thus far, um, that either young professionals or people making a career pivot make? Like, what's the biggest mistake that you've seen they make when they're either entering the workforce for the first time or making a career switch?
What is the biggest mistake that I've seen people make? I would just say, don't underestimate yourself. And I don't know if this is like an exact mistake. But oftentimes I'm going to use my own example. It's like you think like, oh, you're not supposed to be in certain rooms, or well, I'm not supposed to say certain things, or don't do those things. And don't underestimate the power of being yourself and showing up as that, and trusting that. I think that we've all, I don't want to generalize, and we have different ways that we've been brought up from cultures and things that have sometimes made it so that we hide behind it. And what I would say, my peak is not mistake, but I think it is a mistake to not embrace it and use it as our strength. And sort of share it with other people, whatever that means. So that would be my thought. And with young leaders, another thing is my experience was always that when you're authentic and when you're vulnerable and you're genuine with people, they're going to like you and want to help you in a real way. So be yourself. Don't feel like you got to like sugarcoat it and be somebody your whole not, because that actually ruins it, right? If you're authentically, and that's difficult for all of us. And the first thing is like, I start like myself. I try to practice that. And sometimes it comes through, sometimes it doesn't. So it's like we all have to learn from one another. And like you said, people observe more than they watch what you say, for example, and just dream really big as well. Because I also want to encourage our future leaders in our community to know that like we belong in all these different spaces and we can be in these different spaces and we are in these different spaces, and we can also look like ourselves in a very our multifaceted selves while doing that.
For
That
sure,
was a
for
long
sure.
answer, but you got it.
I no, it is a great answer, and it leads me to my next question about, because you've traveled a lot, you've been to a lot of places. Communication is key also into every aspect of our life, but especially when it comes to doing well in the workplace and with your career, whatever that may be. So when it comes to communicating with people, especially from different cultures, right? Like that are like, the for example, the Japanese culture, right? Versus the West African culture, very different styles of communication, right? And so what I'm trying to get at is like, it's also very important to understand the people and the person you're talking to, right? And as you're trying to navigate and being a person of someone who wants to help, right? And community impact, right? So my question is, how important is communication for a
Yes, I
person?
would say communication is important, and also just having the humility to know that we don't know everything and that we're learning
Mm,
together. So, for example, if you said like a West African, and something that I've learned is like there are certain things that connect humans around being human no matter what. Like a smile, for example, and certain things like you love your children, you love, your grandparents, your parents, etc. That's universal. And what we should think about. Wait, what was the first point that I made? That I was kind of running on that, but I lost it. What did I say?
I can't remember either.
Man, it was good. Well, and now I even blanked on the question you were asking. We were talking about, oh, what does communication play? The role of communication. And I said humility. Okay. So this is what I was saying. What I was saying was that, so for example, one of my friends, and like I work with Indigenous people in my work, and that was something that my company kind of threw me into, which like I don't identify as a Native American. And I went into these spaces as the little Pakistani girl and was like talking to tribal leaders, and I didn't know much about their traditions or their cultures or things. And what I found was that being humble about it, being honest and being just a human that was genuine and open to learn and still being myself, and they're actually like now over the years, like that has led me to have relationships with like tribal leaders and youth and be able to like find myself in any room and be able to connect to people. It really does come down to being humble enough to be like, yeah, we're different, or just like friendly. Kindness goes a long way. Like everybody can define and understand kindness. So, like, those are forms I think of communicating
Yeah,
that can transcend that and then create more opportunities to learn about the other people, right? Because those things kind of come with trust building and time. People aren't going to let you into like their homes and different things unless they feel that sense of connection. Like, in our Pakistani culture, for example, a lot of like there's hospitality, like having meals together or
right,
having chai together or doing things. So just being open and having the humility to know that we don't know everything, but if we connect with people with a sense of wanting to know more about them in a genuine way without like trying to separate ourselves, people will feel that, and then
right.
we'll get to know more.
For sure. Yeah. So in a nutshell, combination of humility and understanding the styles of communication. Once you've understood and really leveraged there are certain universal values that every culture shares, right? And so when you adopt that very early on and have that open mindset and sense of humility, then that's when you start really be able to connect with people, is essentially what you're saying, correct?
Thank you for some rephrasing it. So
Yeah.
I guess if I had to like say a couple of like little pointers, because the truth is that when it comes to human connection and growth, in my own experience, it's like, there's, we call it emotional intelligence. Like that goes a long way. And what that means is like, try and have some empathy, put yourself in the person's shoes. If you meet someone who has a language barrier or has access issues or anything, whatever way, try to just look at that lens through some sense of empathy and compassion. I use that word too. Ar-Rahman is one of the beautiful names of Allah, and it's in our first intention that we're asked to say everything, do before everything. Because when we're compassionate about anything, same thing, people will feel that and an openness will naturally come. Then we said, yes, kindness and compassion is sort of the same, but you know what I mean? And humility. So, what humility means to me is just being genuine, right? Like, I'm gonna be like, I don't know all the answers, and like, nice to meet you, assalamu alaikum, or however, And I feel like when you go in with that kind of open heartedness, an interaction can never really go wrong for the most part, you know? And sometimes maybe something will, but like, again, if you go in with the right intention, and sometimes another thing I'll just say, like a tidbit, things seem more different and scary until they're not. So, like, oh, let's say somebody is from West Africa and they seem a little distant and a little like intimidating, for example, just because sometimes in our cultures, men or uncles or whoever feel a little more closed off, for example. It doesn't hurt to just still be that one that's like the softer one and just opens that, cracks it open, right? Because more often than not, when you kind of lean in, the other person will lean in too.
100%. Yeah. And these aren't just buzzwords, or empathy, compassion, emotional. These are real skills that need to be adopted at every level. I 100% agree with that. For sure, we need to do um, a better job and be more cognizant of people's emotions as well. So I want to kind of pivot back to you now, as we're kind of slowly wrapping up our discussion here. Want to talk about more about you and kind of causes that you're a part of, and how we can support you. So can you tell us a little bit about anything that you're doing outside of your corporate world or corporate jobs? Um, is there anything you're passionate about that you're working on right now?
Yeah, thank you so much. What I'm truly passionate about is creating like global experiences and spaces and community that share and connect everyone, right? So there's a few ways, and it's been interesting as I've been growing. And I would say like my corporate job has been this really firm pillar that has allowed me to like dream and learn myself in other directions too. And that's good, being creative. So I'm very inspired by fashion. Zoya fashion, this like fusion fashion is something that I'm creating and in the process of creating. Anyone out there that wants to help be a part of the journey, we're always welcoming, because I also really truly believe in co-creation. My most powerful creations or things that I've done have been by working with people, trusted partners, and building out. I'm extremely excited and interested by like creating shared spaces. So I have an Airbnb home in Arkansas and another one I'm building somewhere else. And I look just appreciate, it's kind of like my way of hospitality. I enjoy when I'm not there that other people can use it. And it is a big responsibility and it's tough, don't get me wrong. And I also want to be like, I can be a landlady and you can be too. So that, and I am also experimenting more in my content and my sharing. So we recently launched the Zoya the Explorer YouTube channel, which started off as just me sharing some of my travel adventures. And I'd love for the community to subscribe, to watch, to share feedback. And yeah, because I can't be everywhere all at once, the social digital platforms excite me because it's a way to kind of be together all the time. And it's like my community in Bali and Guatemala and like my Muslim community here in New York and LA, like everybody, we all can kind of see. And it's a unique amalgamation because, like, oh, I care about disability and indigenous rights and certain things. So I'm really looking forward to how that continues to evolve in my creation. And I am excited. Thanks for being a part of it. And yeah, I think that's it.
Very nice, very nice. Hopefully, a lot of people can support you in the way that you want to be supported, right? So, for those of you who are new to follow Zoya the Explorer. It's a wonderful channel, lots of great adventures to view, and she meets a lot of wonderful people. And inshallah, you get to see other parts of the world and meet a very interesting people that we share this world with.
Yes. And can I say
Is
one other
there a
thing?
way? Yeah, go ahead.
Earlier you talked about technology, right? And we are in an interesting time right now where technology is evolving at a faster pace than we can keep up with. And in many ways, like artificial intelligence is really like actually very real. And it's very important for our voices to be represented in that. So I encourage everybody that's listening to engage with these tools. We got to learn them. We got to engage with them. We got to put our voice in them because if our voice isn't in them, then that collective knowledge that everyone's pulling from, our knowledge won't be in it. So, like, I am not perfect at this. I'm just got like chat GPT level, but I know that when I'm talking to it, I'm speaking to it, like I'm literally putting like our whole community into it. And then it responds to me like that too. And that's like all of our multicultural, diverse. However, our voices matter, and I encourage us to put them in that way. That's a big way that we can still make an impact too.
For sure. Yeah, definitely very important to be up to date and knowledgeable in all things technology because it's evolving at such a fast pace, like you were saying, that it will only do you a disservice if you're not keeping up to with the times as
Yeah,
it
and like,
relates to.
more like opportunity to all learn. Like I'm not perfect at it and these different platforms and as we're
Sure, sure.
experimenting.
Yeah,
And it's just like, let's all make a commitment to keep learning and growing together because that's also really exciting, right?
definitely. Definitely. How can the public or anyone who wants to either learn from you or you want to learn from reach out to you? What's the best way to contact you?
Yes, so please connect with me on LinkedIn, Zoya Rukh Awan, also Zoya the Explorer on Instagram. And we talked about my YouTube channel on YouTube. Feel free to send me a DM and engage with me. I am always happy to hear feedback and engage. What I will say is that sometimes on these platforms, we do get a lot of flood of messages and things. So be persistent and patient if you really want to hear from me. Just saying.
Yes.
Salman knows.
Yep. Yes. It might take a day or two, maybe not.
Might make a day
But
or
to be
two or a
fair to
couple
you,
weeks, but just stay on top of it.
you do travel a lot, so that's very understandable. So no, thank you so much for sharing and for the wonderful conversation. Before we wrap up, is there anything you'd like to share with our listeners, or you want to bring up that we haven't already?
Let me think 1 second. Okay, so what's coming up in this moment as we wrap up this podcast session for all of our listeners is may we continue to stay grateful, say alhamdulillah, and be grateful because that's something that continues to grow us. The more you're grateful, the more you have to be grateful for. And alhamdulillah times a million for all of our blessings. So I just want to put out a prayer for a lot of gratitude and also um for healing for our entire ummah. I know that we are existing in a lot of complex times and it's pretty dark and difficult to reconcile some of the things that our community is facing. And again, sometimes it's not like a loud and proud thing we have to do, but our prayers are powerful. And what we do with like holding them and honoring that those in our everyday actions and how we serve is valuable. So don't to do what you can. You get what I mean, right? And inshallah, all good things. May we keep on growing and like I said, here to continue to work together and keep the conversation going. And also, always keeping in mind that none of us are necessarily experts here and we are all learning together and doing our best. So whenever you look at someone, assume the best and keep that lens and then trust that everything's working out.
Love it. That's a very wonderful reminder to show gratitude and show as much love as we can to combat the depressing and dark times that we live in, for sure.
Yeah, love is all there is. Like carry it because it is all such a like inward out experience. So, like, the more we work on ourselves and purifying our own hearts, which is an endless journey, as we know, I don't even know what it means, but we try. And the more we can do that,
You're
the
right,
more,
right.
inshallah, like outwardly in all of our communities and everything, it will show up. So, and just really grateful for it to be plugged in and to be part of a platform that is wanting to grow us all like that. So everybody, if anyone's listening right now and wants to be on the podcast or wants to share more voice, or let's all keep empowering one another and good things will come.
Inshallah, inshallah. So with that, Zoya, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today and your insights and everything that you reminded us you know that we need to do more of, right? And from accountability to career advancement, ethical navigation. And there are a lot of insights there to derive from that can definitely benefit us and definitely will resonate with the listeners as it does for myself. So thank you again, and Jazakallah khair. And to our listeners, we'll see you again next time, inshallah. Thank you for listening to the Tread a Path podcast. You can find all the resources our guests mentioned in the Tread a Path archive in our website, coffeeproductions.com, along with the links to connect with our guest speakers. If today's conversation inspired you or helped you in your own professional journey, we'd love to hear from you. So please leave us a review, share the episode with someone who might benefit, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. May your treaded path be blessed and full of wisdom. Assalamu alaikum.